that everyone's like socializing, and saying hi to each other, and grabbing drinks. It's great. All right. For those of you that don't know me, my name is McHugh. My pronouns are she, they. Happy spring equinox. It's lovely out lately. So tonight we have two kick-ass women in our lineup. I'm really excited to get started. Andy is in New Jersey visiting his family, so send your love. He was bummed to miss it and to not be here, so he texted me and said he was thinking of all of us. I'm going to get started with just some brief shout-outs and housekeeping, and then we'll get going. So we're going to start by giving shout-outs to members of the St. Louis Poetry Center. You can become a member on our website or use the QR code in the back. Shout out to Missouri Arts Council and Regional Arts Council, our partners there, and then our partners here at the Focal Point. We have some upcoming events at the Poetry Center. Sunday workshop is going to be with Teresa Zickelwitz. Did I get that right? Okay, cool. That's going to be on April 19th. And then Observable is going to be with her on 4/20. A couple housekeeping things. Bathrooms are out this hall door and to the left. You can also buy drinks next door, which all of you have really already done, so I don't even need to tell you. We have books in the back tonight, so if you're interested in purchasing one of those, please just see the poet to facilitate that transaction. If you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube Live, hello, and if you're watching it in the future, I hope that the state of the world is a lot better than it is right now. Do we have any first-timers for Poetry at the Point tonight? Yeah, okay, I love this. Awesome, welcome. We're really happy to have you guys. So a couple of things. We do a Q&A after the poets read, and if we have time for audience questions, we'll do that tonight. Andy and I did a little social experiment in January, which was like you would write your question down on a piece of paper, and then one of us would grab it and bring it to the front. And I think what we learned is everyone likes to stay in their seat, so we're just going to have everyone maybe like raise your hand if you have a question. We'll do it that way. And I'm going to get us started by reading a poem. All right. This is called Red Tulips, Then Asphodel by Brenda Shaughnessy. Was I ever truly happy, like some girl in a red tank top, eating sunlight in spring? It's hard to say. If flowers are symbols of emotions, it's still hard to say. What belongs, what goes, and which way? Did I once feel like a tulip, bending gracefully toward its own root, its own death, the lower my head, the more beautiful? Or was I ever showy like a peony, for one wild week, sexed fully pink without blushing? What are emotions anyway? Flowers die not knowing. And yet our feelings lead us down that one path we only ever take, deceptively edged with bloom after bloom after bloom.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm very excited for this poet to grace our stage. Angel C. Dye is a poet and professor of African American literature with roots in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. Dye received her BA in English from Howard University, her MFA in creative writing from the University of Kentucky, and her MA and PhD in English literatures from Rutgers. She's the author of two poetry collections entitled Breathe, 2021, and My Mouth, A Constant Prayer, 2023. And her work has appeared widely in journals and magazines. She teaches courses on Black women's writing, Harlem Renaissance literature and culture, and more at SIUE. Please put your hands together for Angel.
Thank you so much, McCallum, for that warm welcome. Good evening, everyone. It is so nice to be here. I'm just grateful to be invited into this space. This is my very first poetry reading in St. Louis. I'm now a St. Louis resident. I'm officially inducted. Poetry is the inducting factor. So I'm excited to share some poetry with you tonight. I'm working on a collection of poems. I'm about a year and a half into writing this manuscript that is titled, I was saying tentatively titled, but actually titled English Lessons. And I'm thinking about myself as a first generation English researcher and PhD, 2 generations removed from sharecroppers in Tennessee, which means not far removed from enslaved African Americans who could not legally read and write, but also thinking about the attack on literacy and DEI that is happening in our country, thinking about the ways that African American dialects get co-opted and appropriated, but also penalized and treated as though they are less than. And so you will hear that in these poems tonight, and I hope that you enjoy them. And I will be in the back with some books at the end of the evening if you'd like to come and say hello or get a book, okay? English lessons. Let me preface this by saying that I saw a post go viral in early 2023, 2024 of a teacher's classroom rules, basically listing all the things that her students were not allowed to say in her classroom. And that is where this poem came from. English lessons. Miss T's list of forbidden classroom terms goes viral to kick off a new year. In bold, these words/sayings are prohibited in my classroom. Included are all variations of bruh, on bro, on hood, on me, on my mama, or on my dead anybody. No TikTok terminology tolerated, from Riz to G-Way, the viral line, in the cup with my twin, we be vibing. None of that. Not that Miss T spells the rap lyric right, and not to be confused with just vibe, twin, also unacceptable. No vernacularized greetings or endearments, not what's up gang, or big dog, or gang gang, definitely no compliments like you ate that up, or it's giving. Do not agree, period. Do not cite sexy red ski. Do not disagree. That's cap. And the only person allowed to stand on business is Miss T. Fascinatingly, Miss T both understands the dialect she rejects intimately and not at all simultaneously. She conflates standing on business with a wholly separate acronym, SOB. She's unsure about the inherent call out in calling cap and capitalizes the C. She unintentionally or maybe intentionally writes redundantly when demanding who and what no one must swear on. And her numerical separation of munyan and motion is a rookie move, considering the two are closely linked. But what is most alarming is not the obvious errors in transcribing a dynamic style of speech or even the audacity to censor the N-word. It's the prefatory paragraph threatening that students, quote, caught using these words will write a short essay explaining why they chose to use them in an academic setting to express themselves. Miss T reduces her pupils' words to slang and gibberish and asserts that using them in school can, quote, diminish their capability to become successful writers. She declares, grammatically incorrectly, "You will carry yourself as scholars in my classroom," as if code switching is not an ingenious act, as if speaking in plural tongues is anything other than a spiritual fact, as if a language brought to Africans on boats is not still the heaviest ancestral load they carry on their backs. Miss T answers her own provocation without even realizing it. Why choose these words when there are so many others to access? Well, to express themselves, of course. And true expression rests not at the behest, request, or suggestion of anything or anyone but itself. You cannot police a chorus of originality and referent into submissive silence. Just like the 2 asterisk addendum at the end of Miss T's rules says, this expression, this knowledge production, this constant negotiation and confrontation of and with language is always, always subject to change. Keep up. And to that end, I've been thinking a lot about the ways that Black folks can just make words and phrases out of anything. And so one of those examples is the word cut, which has many different meanings depending on context, circumstance, people, place. This is called conjugation. Cut it on, cut it off, cut it out, cut up, cut your wheel in the cut, some cut in, cut out, cut them off, cut a rug, cut less, cut, she's there, a record, school, meet, deep. And there's a footnote here after some cut. See also, cut you up, which is taken from the Scrappy and Trillville explicit version of subcut. The YouTube commentators prefer the clean version, but this is from the explicit version. Litany. I was not supposed to be the one. The one with Gold Coast DNA, sea-buried ascendants, iron-cuffed coffle wrists, auction block origins, no name to new name to bridled tongue to slashed back to sunup and sundown sweat snatched innocence, monopolized womb, domesticated chattel, barely permitted to breathe, let alone read. Was never supposed to be the one survival mode sharecropping, front bus seat boycotting, runaway road trip green booking, rear view lynching tree staring, dissected members dangling, one room schoolhouse learning, looped eyes and crossed T's on slate, forming lips to illegal literacy. Renaissances and race riots ignited, depression and downturn stifled, was not meant to be the one. The one writing picket signs and rhyming lines, the one forging genres, wefting words award-winningly, sitting in every authoritative seat, Penn Avenue to Senate to municipality, cross-legged behind name-plated desks, diploma-walled backdrop, pen in palm, contracts signed, pencil to grid, blueprints drawn, canvas covering, and portrait gallery hung, pseudo-scientifically, skewed statistically, model minority, never vast majority, was not supposed to be the one. But here I stand. Thank you. As you can see, I've been thinking about ancestry a lot, about belonging, about place, about citizenship, and that just never ends. Being Black in America, being a Black woman in America, that happens continuously. But there are joyous parts of it too. Anybody reality TV fans in here? Bravo, Real Housewives? Great, you will love this, I hope. Real Housewives 101. Don't start none, there's gonna be some. Nobody is safe either. Husband, kids, unwashed house, slightly askew wig, knockoff purse, brand labeled luxury, or boyfriend. Mind your own bob at all times. Or your spaghetti straps will become shady banter and brunch fodder. If there's filming, there's fighting. The degree to which a diva is dragged varies by the extent of her loose lips. And it can go down in the local Chili's, in an underground railroad museum, at a fashionless fashion show, or in the middle of the ocean on a stage trip. Looks will be served, and reads will be swiftly merciless, peppered with below the belt pellets. Gird your loins with Goyard and gossip. Keep your feet shod in Schiaparelli and secrets. Sling Black gay slang meticulously. Surround yourself with men you trust to dress or defend you. If you find yourself floundering for a storyline, one will be assigned to you. Give your best peach cherry blossom winning performance, knowing that every utterance will become iconic vernacular for generations. Memeable memories of the pre-plastic surgery and rich filler reality. This is reality. Everything else is simply television. As you can see, anything can become a poem. If you believe hard enough. I don't even know how to preface this poem except to say that the last year and a half of my life has been a whirlwind in so many ways. And one of those ways has been shifting health circumstances. And when you go from what you believe is like completely and totally healthy to confronting illness that you've never confronted before, you start to question your mortality in ways that you haven't before. And so I've been working through that. I'm alive and I'm seemingly well, but this is me thinking through that. Self-portrait as MRI. Doctor shows me images of my brain, says it is healthy. The matter perfectly grooved and squiggled, says looks can be deceiving. You are not out of the woods. In fact, the tree you toppled from is the reason this perfect picture is a facade. Your aunt, the one born with static inside her, suspicious. The distant uncle you never knew, a lightning strike too. This is the way it goes. Your body, strong, sturdy, trained and stretched into submission, becomes a case study. Biology book of breakdown, petri dish of deterioration, because foregoing food and frequenting the gym cannot outrun origins embedded at a cellular level. The black and white brain matter is beautiful. When you consider all the lyrics and verses it holds, all the names and faces it knows, all the faculties and functions it facilitates. I am smart and tired. Is this why these synapses fired caustically? Prolonged fight or flight living will do that to any amygdala, make a hurricane of any hippocampus. Still, scan after scan, test after test, cannot reveal what is true of this mind. It is sharpened to a brightness, a resolution, bright enough to blind, one that even its own shortcomings can never seize. No, I want to break the stereotypes that Black folks always late, so I want to make sure I'm not going over time. This is called First Gen. As I mentioned, I'm a first generation everything, first generation PhD for certain. First gen. The first is always fragile. Despite popular rhetoric about strength and resilience, doing something never before done in their line of descent is equally daring and dangerous. Going all the way back to the boats, no one has wrestled a dream this defiantly, let alone wrangled one. Picture the first, filing federal aid forms as a tender teen, terrified of committing fraud or forgery for the hope of a bright future. Imagine the first, schooling as a means of survival, since scoring second seems certain death. So the first set sights on swinging, from the gluttonous quicksand of poverty to the trapeze and tightrope of academic tenure, praying that after the trial and tribulation of firsthood, they will not be the last. I love to eat, and I feel like that's a very universal experience. I'm so happy to be here in St. Louis because there's really good food here. The Chinese food, like, I just didn't know, but now I know. So I write about food quite a lot too. And in this instance, I'm writing about food as something that is very deeply ancestral and deeply connected to identity, and specifically my Black identity, my folks. Soul's food. My people took the twisted innards of swine and the table scraps of their well-fed masters to create something divine out of cash crops and seeds stitched into scalps, scattered the beginnings of corn and cane rows, stewarded okra, black-eyed peas, yams, mustards, and collards with meal and yardbird, dredged, battered, fried, soaked peppers, pickled and brined, summer spoils for winter sustenance, jellied, preserved, smoked, dried, and cured the crumbs, keeping them just barely nourished enough for captivity into cuisine. I'm going to end with what I think is a joyful poem because we need joy so much. But it opens with an epigraph from a novel by Toni Cade Bambara called The Salt Eaters. It's a really difficult novel in many ways, in that it wrestles with healing and healing as a Black woman, which is a multifaceted and ongoing endeavor. And there's a quote from the novel here that says, "Are you sure, sweetheart, that you want to be well? Be still and know. Are you sure that you want to be here, alive? Because your overwhelm and under rest suggest you'd rather bodily arrest, heady protest, neurons, neurotic senses snapped, inner peace and power trapped. Silent prayers turned earnest verse are only semi-surrender. To truly heal, you must lay down your doubts, your fears, your heavy and weary. Break down your bravado, turn in your survival tactics. To truly devote your temple to worship. After the fracture and crack, open your arms so you can be held and sure, darling, that you are ready, willing to be well. Thank you.
Angel, you were powerful. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. Lindsay McHugh is a poet and journalist based in St. Louis. Her debut chapbook, Unmemory, was published by Bottle Cap Press in 2025. She publishes journalism under the byline Lindsay Toller. All right. I need you guys to go ahead and make some noise for Lindsay, please.
A safe distance. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Allow me a moment to set up. Okay. This is my first poetry reading as Lindsay McHugh, and so for me, this is a really special. So thank you very much for being here. To introduce myself, I think I should just dive in. So this poem is called I Used to Write the News. I used to write the news in rooms with sodden air. The truth was dressed in Sunday best and did not know despair. My voice was made of glass. I held it in my cheek. I fed it facts in careful stats and dared not let it speak. The world was something sharp. I shaped it into sense, but lost the sound of the underground where truth stopped feeling dense. I started hearing things, a murmur in my spine, a breath a beat beneath my seat, a growl that wasn't mine. Now poetry arrives, with mud between her toes. She tears my seams, invades my dreams, and laughs at what I know. No longer flat and damp, the truth is now aflame. It bites, it blooms, it all consumes, and whispers me my name. Thank you. So thank you so much to St. Louis Poetry Center for having this event, nurturing this event for so many years that we get to be here. Thank you, Angel Sidai, for starting this off tonight. And thank you very much to my friends and neighbors for being here and for supporting. Up until a few years ago, I was a journalist. I was a whole different person. I was an award-winning journalist. I've written for the AP. I covered the Olympics in Beijing. My reporting has been on probably every front page of every newspaper in this continent, maybe the world. And then COVID hit and the world changed, and I stopped feeling like people wanted to hear what I had to say. And so I'm looking for a new way to share truth, and poetry has really been that for me. This is about, I will say, in journalism, I go by Lindsay Toller. That's my name. In poetry, I go by Lindsay McHugh, and this poem explains a little bit about that. This is called Name Game. I wish I could blame it on my job. Even in school, I said, "Hi, I'm Lindsay." Except to the rich girls, to them I was Toller. Rhymes with solar, not dollar. Rhymes with polar, not polar. There weren't any other Lindsays still. Only my last name stuck like lash glue, because in a room full of Hollies and Jennifers and Sarahs, I really was more of a Toller. Gorgeous? No, but striking? Sure, in a sideways way. I considered taking his name when I got married. Pros: join a big family, be less confusing, start something new. Cons: it's not my name. So I stayed, mostly Lindsay, sometimes Toller, both on the byline, and a necklace of nicknames from friends and travels. Lynn's, Toll Dog, Toll House Cookies, LT, Lieutenant. Lin Lin in Beijing means beautiful jade. Yeliza in Moldova, short for Elizabeth because they don't have Lindsays. Then the poems came and I had to choose which name goes on the spine. I practiced deleting the question marks from a new name, Lindsay McHugh. My married name, no, not even. I'm married, but that name isn't mine. McHugh is his, and I am his, and he is mine, and therefore the name becomes mine, just not just mine. If you Google a journalist and find a poet, would you think you've got the wrong girl or a whole one? Thank you. Okay. I requested for that to happen. This next poem is really special to me. This is called The Final Flight of the Butterflies. To my knowledge, this is the first time that this poem's been read in public. It's by a local poet named Mrs. Sunshine, who gave me special permission to write it, or to read it, excuse me. I find it really inspirational, and it inspired some poetry from me, so I just wanted to give you a little peek at it before I showed you my response. So this is The Final Flight of the Butterflies by Mrs. Sunshine. Bountiful energy abounds out here. Her voice spoke lovely, loud and clear. Mother Nature, my cherished, her beautiful babe perished. Monarchs, bees, peeping frogs, scents of wildflowers, even your favorite fauna here. Where did you go? I miss you. I saw one single stalk of milkweed and two bright orange tinies on my way home yesterday. I stopped to say hello, hoping they would survive. Life, so precious and pure. People are impossible to permeate a sense for animals' innate nature. When we try, we look like crazies. I once tasted my dog's chew bone. What's insane is the astronomical endanger rate of animals, resources, the earth. Death will descend its indecency on us anytime soon if we don't move. Do anything is better than nothing, especially positive positions for those who do not speak but say so much about our planet through their paws, oxygen, food, and mortality. Mon Dieu, please help. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Sunshine. So for me, this poem is one of my favorites that I've written. It's called "I Once Tasted My Dog's Chew Bone," and it's what I read to myself when I'm feeling like the world is totally spiraling out of control and I must be the only one who sees it this way. I once tasted my dog's chew bone. Sometimes when I feel crazy or like a low down dirty job, I remember other people don't live Instagram perfect lives offline. It's crazy, crazy, crazy out there, especially recently. So what makes radical empathy so crazy in a world where, I shit you not, leveraged buyouts and citizen deportations are a thing? Have you ever tried to use health insurance in America? Maybe the problem isn't the animal lovers, y'all. Thank you. I have found myself really drawn to writing about Greek mythology, ancient Greek mythology and Roman mythology. My chapbook on memory, the idea is one idea told through the 9 muses. And before I got to that, I just wanted to write a poem that I recently wrote in response to the Artemis mission. You see that we're about to go back to the moon for the first time in 50 years. The mission is named for Artemis. I wanted to give you like a tiny glimpse into who that is and why I'm talking about her. Artemis is the Greek goddess of the hunt, the moon, and the wilderness, typically depicted as a young woman with silver bow and arrows. She is the twin sister of Apollo. When you think of going to the moon, Apollo 11, Apollo 13, Tom Hanks. They wanted to take the Apollo mission and give it a corresponding name, so they named it Artemis, and it should launch next month. This is my conversation from the voice of Artemis with the project. It's called Artemis, We Have a Problem. You named your rocket after me, like I'd be flattered, like I want to ride your metal dick and fuck the sky and spew exhaust over the stars. I don't leave trails. I leave silence. I leave your best men behind in my forest where their names turn to moss in their mouths. I have never explored because I have always known every inch of this ground. So what will I do in space exactly? Spin moon dust into spears? Make shelters out of vacuum? You exile me to nothing and call it promotion. This isn't honor, it's confession. Your myth-making reveals you. Men jumped first, found only emptiness, called it potential, could not tell the difference between a womb and a void. They think I belong there to fix it, to fill it, to suffer it into meaning. But fellas, you've got the wrong girl. I don't want your launch codes, your crew manifestos, your billion-dollar promises. I am not a mission. I am the reason you fail yours. I am the arrow that lands before you ever take off. Thank you. Okay. So my chapbook on memory all centers around how to heal from what I'm calling a traumatic thought. The thought that is in your mind and affects you, but it's not stuck to your consciousness correctly. It's out of line because it's a response to a childhood trauma. That's the truth that I center around, writing from the different perspectives of the Greek muses. In case you're not familiar, the Greek muses are where we get the word museum. They were 9 sisters in ancient Greek mythology who were the goddesses of art and poetry and theater. And when we go to a museum, it's named for the idea that we're engaging with or worshiping the things that they loved, these creative acts of mankind, these discoveries of the natural world. So these were voices that I wanted to channel in my writing. I'll read a little bit from my memory and I'll start with the invocation. And this is based on the muse Calliope. She is the muse of epic poetry, so your Homer stuff, right? And she's the one who, if you've read any epic poetry, she's the one whose name you've probably seen. And she's the one that you most call out to, that the great poets would call out to for help. So that's who I'm calling out to for help here. This is Unmemory Invocation. Sing, muse, of the child who swallowed silence like it was scripture. Sing of her skin, seared not by war, but by belts undone, and voices too loud to name. Tell me how the story goes. I lost the order, I lost the thread. I became so many versions. The original went missing. O muse of memory too big to bear, call forth the days that curled inside me like sleeping dogs, small and prone to bite. You who keep the epics no one dares write down, etch the truth into my marrow. Not the pretty version, not the dream I sold, but the version with teeth, the version that burns. I offer no laurel, no lyre, only this body still twitching with sacrifice. O Calliope, if I am to speak it, let it sing. If I am to bleed it, let it bloom. If I am to become what I was before I forgot, then lend me the voice you saved for the ones who tried to forget and failed gracefully. Thank you. So this very same idea, right, of unearthing a traumatic memory and working through it. I think we can do two more. We could have time. Wonderful. The next muse that I want to channel is Polhymnia. She was the goddess of religious hymns. Something that I find interesting about the muses is there are several who all have different aspects of theater. There's one for tragedy and one for comedy. There's epic poetry as well as like hymn, reverent poetry to the gods. Polhymnia was the goddess of religious hymns. So this is my spiritual reverent version of this idea. On memory, a hymn. There are far too many people who don't remember being small or fear to. There's a blockage there that does not speak at all. Does it protect? Does it prevent? Or is it grief's disguise? It might be how your childhood learned to shrink behind your eyes. But not all trauma wears a mask or stars in fearsome scenes. Sometimes it's just a child confused by what a silence means. The brain, a kind of factory, adds workers every year. At 5, the load is far too much. At 30, it feels clear. At 80, it's too much again, too many parts to track. So memory becomes a maze with exits circling back. Unmemory is not a bomb. It will not split the sky. It only marks a boundary you didn't know to try. And that's okay. You were a kid. You had no way to say, this hurts, or please don't talk like that, or bedtime is not play. Even now inside adults, a kindergartner cries, still asking, where do I belong? And who has judged me why? But here's the thing, when one is healed, it flashes like the sun. And in the light of that discharge, some others join the fun. Not all, but many, more than one, unwinding from the chain. And when you get there, you will know you have reclaimed your brain. Thank you. Okay. The last one that I will do is inspired by, let's see, there's so many options. Thalia, the goddess of comedy. That's a good place to go. So this is Unmemory, a punchline, inspired by the muse Thalia of comedy. People cry over not remembering their childhoods, like it's some great unsolved mystery, like the truth is a rare diamond that can pay off all your debts. I don't remember most of my childhood either. Probably because I was a kid and kids are fucking idiots. I remember a lot of Happy Meals, a lot of knees, a lot of trying not to cry because some adult was proud of how much I didn't. You know what no one tells you? Memory is sticky for the wrong shit. Like, ask me to recall a core wound, blank. But the entire jingle from the Gator Golf commercial burned into my goddamn soul. And trauma, sure, some of it's real, some of it's just being 5 and not knowing how to say, hey, this bedtime story makes me feel like a goddamn orphan. But you're 5. You eat sand. You think Band-Aids are magic, so you shut up and grow up, and now it's everyone's problem. They want you to spin the whole record, every memory, note by note, but come on. You're not the DJ, you're the needle. You drop in, and if the groove is right, you ride it. The kid's still in there, yeah, but he's got his headphones on, he's fine. He just wants you to stop crying over that one time your mom forgot to pick up your jacket. This is what alcohol is for. And sunsets and running into old friends who call you by your nickname. Eventually you'll get struck and suddenly you'll cry like the world's never been more beautiful, and just like that, you'll heal like lightning. Ugly, fast, and gone before anyone gets a picture. Thank you.
Twist a room there. All right. Can we get a round of applause for Angel? The way that you both master language is just really exquisite to me. And Angel, you're talking about joy, and I just felt a lot of joy listening to the sounds that you both put together, and just everything about it was so wonderful. So we have time for some Q&A, and I have a lot of questions, but I want to make sure that you guys get to ask questions as well as if you have them. So it's Women's History Month. I hope no one forgot. We're close to the end of the month, but I'm wondering, and either of you can go first, so whoever feels compelled, how does identifying as a woman shape or resist shaping your poetic practice? And are there ways that you feel in conversation with a lineage of women poets, or ways that you intentionally depart from it? Lindsay, you spoke of the muses, and I think even that in some ways is a lineage. So I'm curious about that.
Thank you for that question. Can I just say briefly, I did not acknowledge my community who came out to support me tonight, and I would like to do that. Thank you all so much for being here, my SIUE family, my St. Louis family. Thank you so much for coming. It is so hard reading in front of people that you know and care about. So thank you for giving me courage. Everything that I do is shaped by a lineage of women. The women in my family, my friends, and certainly the literary lineage that I was inducted into. I would say really as an undergraduate. I identify very, very strongly as a Black feminist in research and in practice. And so, you heard me give honor to Toni Cade Bambara. She's one of those literary foremothers who has paved the way for me in so many ways with her work. But there are others too who have shown me what it means. You were talking about truth and honesty earlier. They have shown me what it means to be radically honest, even when it's not glamorous, even when it is difficult and painful, which it often is, to talk about yourself, to talk about the tragedies in the world and how you are affected by them, how the people you love are affected by them. Yes, constantly thinking about my identity as a woman and the women who have shown me how to walk through this world, with that at the fore and center of my being.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that question. I think anyone who knows anything about poetry and listens to me knows that a lot of my stuff is Emily Dickinson knockoff, right? So I have to admit how much of my early poetry journey is coming from trying to mirror the women who have come before me, who I also look up to. Emily Dickinson is top on that. Another huge source of inspiration for me is Shirley Jackson. She's a really huge part of the Greeks concepted comedy and tragedy not necessarily as being funny or versus sad, but being really about the way I was taught was that comedy is about it ends in a wedding, it ends in a unification, whereas tragedy it ends in division. And so when I write thinking about that ancient concept of tragedy, I pull from a lot of women writers who do not end in unification, but end in that division. That said, a huge inspiration for me is Charles Bukowski, and that's the opposite of Women's History Month. So I think that we find inspiration where we find it.
Absolutely. You both are giving me perfect caveats into my next questions. So tell me about, I think something that I noticed when you both were reading and also when we were, reading your work prior to putting the questions together, you both are really great at mastering a tonal register and also shifting tones. So whether that's being more serious or being more tongue-in-cheek. And so I'm wondering if you can tell me about that process and tell me about how you know when it's right to make that shift when you're writing a poem.
I have found that I'm really desperately trying to get a message across, and I'm telling myself that the message is for young people because I don't know, maybe they're the only ones listening, maybe they're not listening, but I find myself trying to get across a message of self-love and of connectedness to other people, and what was the question?
How do you know when it's
Switching register.
Yeah.
And to that point, so there's got to be jokes in there, and the sadder it is, the more tragic it is, the more heartbreaking it is, the bigger the jokes have to be, and the bigger the humor has to be to balance it out, in my opinion.
Walking that fine line.
I 100% agree that there have to be jokes and unserious moments in the writing. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a deeply unserious person in my day-to-day life. Not that I don't care about things, I care deeply about things, which is why I have to laugh often to keep from crying constantly. So that shows up in my work. I'm also just very nerdy about a lot of things. So a lot of what I do in my work is throw in references to things that I see on social media, television, as you heard, jokes that I have with, friends and family and colleagues, that those things are in there because they're conversational, right? Poetry for me is a conversation. It's not me talking at the audience, as it were. It's me sharing the messages, as Lindsay's expressing, that I most care about, but also hoping that as folks read the work, that they're exchanging something with it, that they're leaving with something, but they're also offering something to it. Perspective, life experience, humor, where they find it in there. And so, yeah, I think there's some deliberate process of here the poem is going to be sad, here the poem is going to be lighthearted. Poems have a mind of their own. They tell me what to do. They call to me when they're ready to be written. And often they call to me in the shower. And that's a very vulnerable and unserious place to be trying to do the serious work of writing. So I let the poems do what they're going to do. And sometimes the humor and the melancholy happen on the same page, right? It's not all one thing all the time.
Don't you hate how the good ideas come when you don't have a pen in hand either? It's I'm in the shower, I'm driving the car, yeah, I'm in a vulnerable position here. So something else that I think you guys have a lot of crossover with is this idea of telling the truth. And Andy and I were trying to figure out how to phrase this question because we were like, well, all artists are interested in telling the truth in some way, shape, or form. That feels like, yeah. It feels like an obvious sort of seeking, I guess. And so I think we were wondering whether it's by questioning memory's authority or by centering experiences that are often marginalized, what feels at stake for both of you in telling or untelling the truth? And in what ways does the truth matter or not matter to you when you're writing? Whoever feels most
Arm wrestle.
That's a different kind of show. I'll say a big part of the reason why I am writing poetry under the name Lindsay McHugh is because it's really important to me that anything I wrote under Lindsay Toller can be corrected. If I wrote a story, doesn't matter how long ago, and it was under the byline Lindsay Toller and you find an error, I want you to tell me what the truth is so that I can go back and correct it. In poetry, I needed a different name because I shall not be corrected as a poet. I don't care if you don't like my take on Greek mythology. I don't like if you don't care about my pronunciation of a goddess. Like, I do not care. I'm not here to be corrected. And that's not the same thing as not caring about truth. But the truth I'm trying to get to is not an idea. It's a resonance among people that takes us to a similar emotional place. And that is something that I just could never do in journalism. At least being a writer, I think that photojournalism maybe got you there quicker.
This is a big question, McAllen. I started writing long before I ever identified as a writer or a poet. I'm a very spiritual person, and I do believe that writing was kind of given to me as an outlet for questions that I had and couldn't answer, things I could not make sense of at a really early age. And so it wasn't until much later that I knew people identified as poets and writers, and there was a whole craft around this. So I think I began with telling the truth because I didn't know there was an alternative, right? I wasn't necessarily sharing what I was writing, but I was being very honest there in the writing because that was the one space where I felt where I could be safely open and honest about what was going on in my head and my heart. But I also, as I have started to, fully identify as a writer, I've started to understand that this is a very, very dangerous thing to do. Being an artist of any kind is dangerous in that the truth telling you're doing is always going to be offensive to somebody. And the degree to which you offend people will vary. The types of people you offend will vary. But there's somebody who is always going to be rubbed the wrong way by the messages you are sharing. And the bold and audacious thing to do is to do it anyway, right? To tell the truth anyway, because like Lindsay's saying it very well, right? That, well, one, who gonna check me? Like, are you gonna fight me after the reading? You're not. So I'm not afraid of that. But I do think, yeah, certainly there are professional stakes and risks and things, opportunities that you may or may not get, depending on the kind of writing, truth telling that you're doing. But I never started doing it for those things anyway, right? I was doing it because I felt it was something I was meant to do, something I was called to do, something that I needed to do to survive. And so, yes, there are real risks. I believe certainly in this political climate, social climate, real risks. But I find that the rewards greatly outweigh the risks for me. I am at home when I get to write and share my work with the world. I am liberated in a way, not saying the things would kill me much faster than I think saying the things can or ever will.
Thank you for that. So tell me, We've asked this question, Andy and I, at every reading that we have curated thus far, and I think it's an important question right now, and so we keep asking it. And that question is, what do you think the role of the poet is in society right now?
Neither of us went for the mic. Well, I mean, you said it. It's truth telling for sure. I also think it's community building. Like, writing can be a really solitary act if you allow it to be. You know, you could stay in your room, at your desk, wherever you do your writing, and never share it, never talk about it, never write with other people. But the community aspect of it is extremely important to me. Even if I don't produce anything that I am proud of ever again, the relationships that I've been able to build because I'm brave enough to say I'm working on this thing. It's just idea I've been turning around in my head, and other people are like, yeah, you should keep doing that. And maybe we should also try and do stuff like that isn't writing, you know. Maybe we should go and listen to other people's writing. Maybe we should, you know, volunteer in our community. Maybe we should teach. Maybe we should do these other things. The community aspect is vital to me. So yeah, our responsibility is to make and create for sure, but it's also to be in the world and be among other people, to love. I know that's so like deep and sappy, but the loving aspect is really important too. What is it all for if we do not care about one another's humanity and well-being? Yeah.
Thank you. I am thinking of the role of the poet in writing as the rule breaker. Journalists are very much like rule followers. We have a lot of ethics, we have a lot of style guides, and even fiction, any other kind of writing, just grammar alone and syntax alone is a lot of rules to follow. Poets get to break all of those on purpose in a way that takes you beyond what simply happens when letters and words and periods get together. It brings you to a deeper place, a more emotional place that I think is really special. And in this time where you really can't trust what you see, and where so many of the words that come our way are so hurtful, I feel like poetry has become kind of a secret language where we can talk below the words to share that we are still connected and we are still part of the universe, even as we feel more and more separated. That's how I feel.
Wonderful answers. I feel like I could sit up here and talk to you guys forever. I do want to, if anyone in the audience has like a burning question, a burning desire, I want to make the time for that because I'm up here yapping away. So does anyone have a burning question or a burning desire? Yes.
Yeah, I have just a quick question. So Lindsay talked about a professional life versus a creative life in some ways, right? Journalism and poetry. But Angel, I want to ask you about scholarship, research, and then the creative outlet. And sort of thinking, how is that connected? How is it different for you? Are those practices part of your whole being, but also separate elements of your being? Or how do you just see it? How do you navigate that, negotiate that?
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah.
Josh is the reason that I'm here tonight, because he's wonderful.
Way to go, Josh.
Wonderful, and connected me with the St. Louis Poetry Center. I don't see them as separate, but I realize that's a contentious thing to say in academic spaces. I don't separate let me just say this. I don't separate my scholarly work, that is my research, archiving, academic publication, presenting research, from the rigor of writing poetry. They're equally rigorous, right? They require a lot from me, both of them. And I also believe that words are important no matter how they show up, right? I'm trying to say this in a kind and tactful way, right? That the academic writing can be very convoluted sometimes, right? And the lineage that I come from, which I explained, is not an academic lineage, right? Like my family and friends, you know, the people who raised me, they do not go to these conferences and read these academic journals, but they support me as a poet, right? They will read my poetry, they will come to my poetry readings and be moved by that, I hope. So I am tasked with putting the same amount of care and time and attention into both things if I want them to be impactful in any way. So I don't separate them in the way that they're often separated in other spaces, like just being honest, right? Am I going to get tenure for the poetry book? Probably not, but I still have to write it for my own personal reasons. Yeah.
All right, so we talked a lot about joy, or I think either of you had brought up examples of joy in your poetry, and something that we like to do is gather paradise. So something artistic that is bringing you joy right now, whether it's music, poetry, a fiction novel, a movie, whatever floats your boat. So something that is creating paradise for me right now, my dad has this habit of, he's got exquisite music taste, and so he buys my wife and I albums like they are going out of style, okay, and drops them off at our house. And so the last time that we saw him, he was like, here's Linda Ronstadt's entire discography. I mean, there are like every single album in there. And I had never listened to Heart Like a Wheel, and so for me right now, that's like bringing me joy and bringing me paradise. I will say, Different Drum with the Stone Ponies is my favorite, and that's not on that album, but Heart Like a Wheel is fantastic. So what is bringing either of you joy right now?
Right now, I'm getting a lot of my joy from the 50th season of Survivor. As well as improv comedy. I am watching a lot of Everything Now show, which is a live stream where they do improv comedy. So I just wanted to shout it out because improv comedy is something that you used to have to like agonizingly go be in the audience, be there for, and it's not like that anymore. You can watch it on a live stream and it's still very funny. So that has been where I've been getting my laughs.
It's not the first time we've gotten Survivor as an answer.
I just finished this wonderful novel called Kin by Tayari Jones. Fabulous novel, please read it. A big part of that novel is letter writing. It's about two really close childhood friends. And one of my friends just told me that I'm her pen pal. So the timing was impeccable. She sent me a zine in the mail and a letter and was like, we're pen pals now. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought it had to be a mutual agreement. But like, I appreciate her for doing that because now I will sit down and write letters and send her snail mail. So those two things.
Thank you both so much for being here. Can we get another round of applause for Lindsay and Angel? We will be back on April 28th with Nicole Brunette and Miguel Barreto Garcia. So thank you both again for being here. Thank you, Aaron. And until we meet again, open the door, keep the door open. Appreciate y'all being here. Good night.